This is the Guns Magazine podcast, episode number 40. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. Before we get started, let's talk about our sponsor, Kimber Firearms. Kimber was founded with the singular purpose of making every firearm the best it can possibly be, with a fit and finish that only practiced hands can achieve and appreciate. Whether you carry a Kimber for personal protection, hunting, or competition, know that their promise of quality without compromise is how they measure success. To learn more about Kimber Firearms, visit kimberamerica.com. Today is a timely podcast. I say timely because during the most recent Guncranks Wednesday night broadcast, Jim discussed current events, but especially the situation regarding the National Rifle Association. Of course, we all learned yesterday the NRA is the subject of a dissolution lawsuit filed by the state of New York and another lawsuit action filed by the District of Columbia. Aside from the NRA troubles, during our talk, Jim gives his insight on the state of the firearms industry, new shooters, police defunding, social justice rioters, and a lot of other topics. Now here's Roy Huntington, Tom McHale, and myself, the Guncranks live crew, talking to pundit Jim Shepard about current events.
It's funny, the people that you would never think would buy a gun are standing in line and filling out the paperwork. And the interesting part about all of it is they are finding out that you can't do it. You can't buy one through the mail. You can't drive through the back of the gun store and buy one like a McDonald's. And it's an educational experience for a lot of people who think, well, a few more rules wouldn't hurt a bit until they have to follow them.
Right.
Well, put on your crystal ball, and where do you think this is going to go? We all like to think they're all going to become active shooters, hunters, and Second Amendment advocates, but we all know how people are. Where do you think this is going to go?
Well, I think if the situation ever stabilizes societally, and I don't think it ever will, they'll go in the sock drawer where their grandfather's gun went. The difference is they will have shot 500 rounds through the one in the sock drawer. Your grandfather loaded it and stuck it in the sock drawer, and it's never been fired. So they're going to have a lot less collector value when they flood the market. But I don't see any opportunity lost in the industry right now because we're doing the things that we need to do. We're doing the outreach. We're doing the education. I'm seeing gun stores working people into the process, not just pushing a product across the table. They're saying, well, you're going to need two kinds of ammunition. You're going to need practice ammo, and then you want ammo to carry in your gun that's as close to it as you can get, Then they talk about a holster. They talk about a cleaning kit. And the most important thing to me is they're talking about safe storage more than I've ever heard. I actually saw someone in a gun store show how one of those locks worked. I didn't know how it worked. I've got a 20-gallon drum in my garage full of bike locks. I've given every kid in the neighborhood a lock and still got tons of them left. But, I've also got a big safe. If you notice, safe sales are off the charts. And if you go look online, these little personal safes with the biometric and all, you can't find them. They're out of stock because people who buy these guns are taking ownership in them, not just taking possession, they're taking ownership. And I think that's a big deal. That implies they don't plan to put them away. They plan to keep them with them.
One of the guys doing some contractor work for me said, boy, I called the other day. I couldn't find a 223 anywhere. And he said, I have this new AR-15. And I said, well, I'll give you a couple of boxes or something. He said, oh, no, I'm okay. I've got about 20,000 rounds. And I said, well, why are you looking for more when obviously it's expensive right now and people are already hoarding? I mean, have you ever tried to carry 20,000 rounds of, if you're going to bug out or something, really? And he said, well, you just never know. But he and other people I've talked to, they can't really put a finger on why they're doing it. It's just that hoarding TV show, where they clean them and then they found all these brand new shirts still in wrappers that they bought 20 years ago. And I think what's going to be happening later on, it's same thing happened to every other one of these, is you're going to see the gun shows get flooded with, $10 ammo. Yeah, and all those $300 9mm polymer pistols that people bought were going to be $199. And I just don't know what causes people to do that.
I can say that you're exactly correct on that, because I'm still shooting some ammo I bought after the people who freaked out at Y2K realized I'm never going to shoot all this. I've still got 4 or 5 boxes of Korean surplus ammo that I shoot whenever I just want to go out and waste ammo. Not that I ever waste a lot. I can't waste a lot of ammo now because I have to make an appointment to get on the range, and I have to book 2 weeks in advance.
Good Lord. Well,
I think there's something different going on this time, though. I mean, we've got COVID and unemployment and that general concern, but I think there's a long-term factor at play, and that's this whole police department issue. I mean, yes. I was reading yesterday about the city of Seattle, big major city, is actively abolishing their police. They're going full speed ahead with replacing the entire police department with community love organizations or something like that. And I mean, if people see that and they look, as that movement kind of spreads to other cities, that's long-term trouble,
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of other things that people are really concerned about. Of course, in California, you're concerned about everything, or you're oblivious to everything. It's, it's one or the other there. I'm hearing that a major source for ammo and outdoor stuff and everything else is essentially completely exiting now. They've been talking about it, but now I'm hearing they're going to stop selling any ammunition, anything related to shooting, and they're going to only carry fishing and camping stuff. Now, everybody knows we're talking about a company from Bentonville, Arkansas. And if it works and they can get away with it in California, you can expect that movement to spread east as well. Mm-hmm. They tried the virtue signaling before, and unfortunately, some old reporter at a little wire thing in Alabama at the time got word of it because he got the memo to the board and wrote about it, and they had to back off on that. Well, there's nobody out there protecting anybody anymore. They're all busy about virtue signaling, which drives me crazy. All virtue signaling means is I'm going to jump on any opportunity to make myself look good at the expense of somebody else. That's not virtue signaling. That's predatory marketing. Mm-hmm. And it always backs up like a cheap sewer, as it should.
I saw a cartoon the other day where it was a millennial who I know someone who calls them minimals, which I think is hysterical, but they bumped into, there was a cartoon, a multiple plate cartoon, and they bumped into a homeless guy and they said, I know just what to do about this. And then the next plate, it shows them and 2 or 3 other millennials sitting around having a Starbucks coffee talking about how awful it is that there's homeless people. And then the next one, the homeless guy is in a new suit, right? And he says, I'm on my way to my new job, thanks to their virtue signaling, basically.
Yeah. Well, I lived in New York, and New York is the city where people will go out and demonstrate for the Save the Whales movement. Then they'll go home and have their doorman throw the homeless people off the steam grate in front of their house. That's because the whales are there, the homeless are here, and they don't like that. They like these things that are like removed from reality. And I think whales are learning a big lesson from all of this. I don't know what it'll do any good, but maybe they're learning something.
I will stick up for the young folks, though. I was at Gunsight last week, and they had their first ever youth 499. So these are kids that have gone through the 250, the 350, and now the 499. So, and it was all, early teen kind of kids, and they were serious about shooting. So there may only be 20 of them in the country, but it was pretty cool to see.
But they were all out there.
They were.
I was going to say, now you were talking about young kids. They were what, 40?
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just the truth. I mean, look at us. We have 400 years of experience between us here.
This is true.
People used to tell me all the time is, how is it that they would always say all your readers are going to die off and then you're going to have to close the magazine. And they've been saying that for 40 years and it doesn't happen. And until I became the editor, I realized and you see it with the wires, is all you have to do is look at the press releases saying who's being hired, and you continuously see young faces.
Yes.
And what I find is that I'll get a reader note from some 28-year-old guy saying, hey, I was at the range and I did this, and some old guy showed me a revolver and he showed me a magazine and said I should subscribe. And then, suddenly now we have a new reader. And then pretty soon he's 40 years old, and so it continues. And so somehow these young people do morph into it when they discover life beyond Glocks and AR-15s.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I think it's our pop-up.
I think we're seeing a second
really
wave concurrent with what's going on now. And that's the second wave of people who are saying, okay, I've got this one. Now I need another one, or another one, and another. Now they bought a pistol. Now they realize they need a shotgun and a rifle. Now they're ready for 3-gun, and they're really bought into the program. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all working well. I think things are going great for us. When's the other shoe fall? My God, how many feet do we have? We have had shoes fall. This 2020 has been the annulus horribilis for all of us. It's been a terrible year. It's been the year of crazy things. And it's been Tiger McKee, who you guys know because he writes for all of us, I think now, calls it the roaring 20s. And it is. The 2020s and the 1920s are a lot alike. Everything seems topsy-turvy and turned upside down. So we'll come through it, I think.
Well, that's a new saying, don't go all 2020 on me.
Yeah.
Really?
It's the truth. Yeah, don't go 2020 on me.
Because you know why, Jim? Because we are hip. We are down with it. The Guncranks Live. That's us.
I guess so.
What advice should we give our readers and listeners? What do you think about the industry, about the rest of the year, presidential races? You're a businessman and you're well-versed in politics. I think all three of us certainly respect your opinion about things. That's why I read your editorials every day.
Thank God. I thought our English teachers only used them as bad examples. But, I'm a punctuation optional TV guy. That's my defense. But it's a crazy year. It's a year where, once again, we're doing well when a lot of other people are hurting. I think what's making a case for us is our industry is trying to help. When you're selling all you can make of a product and you stop making it to make masks and hand sanitizer because there's a shortage, that's virtue signaling of virtue, not of signal. And I think that's the thing they're finding about us is we're humans. We're all in this together. And yes, we get irritated by the well-meaning dunderheads that think that, we're just going to sit around the campfire and roast marshmallows and make s'mores forever, and don't realize that bad things happen to good people for no reason other than bad things happen to good people. I think the industry is going to do fine. I think that we're going to have to adapt, and I think this is one example of the ways we're having to adapt. We're kind of being dragged kicking and screaming into the modern era because we can't have our face-to-face meetings like we'd like to. We can't do the things we've normally done for the years. And we have always learned that the outside's good for the inside. And a lot of people are learning that now because they can't go to their crowded beach and their rave parties. So they go walking in the woods and it's like, oh my God, this John Muir guy may have known what he was talking about. I don't know who John Muir was, but yeah, you're right. The mountains are calling, and thank God I have call waiting, so, we're getting out and getting into it. As far as the political cycle, Roy, boy, who do you believe? I don't believe anybody at this point. I don't believe the Democrats. I don't believe the Republicans. I don't believe the polls. I don't believe anything I see on television. I don't believe much of what I hear on the radio. And I only believe the people I know. But the question is, how good is our information? Can we believe a poll? Can we believe in it? Can we believe any of this stuff? Well, that's the fundamental problem we're all battling now is, can we believe it, or do we believe it? Dare we believe it?
And that coming from a network news guy who you've kind of washed your hands a little bit of that cable news network, or communist news network, as some people refer to it.
Crappy news network. I have been. I'm on an alumni page that they can't throw me off of because they already would have, and a lot of very yeasty discussion has taken place between some of us and some of them, and it's been interesting because for the first time I'm seeing these modern journalists questioning the way they do what they do. That's a good thing because they don't know what to believe. And, anybody who's a Second Amendment advocate knows about how they parrot back talking points. And that's always been the case, I guess, but it's especially noticeable if you care about the Second Amendment. And I've pretty much washed my hands of anything that they're doing now, but I'm thinking they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to adapt or they're going to disappear. And there's nothing that, as Churchill said, that focuses the mind like a hangman's rope. And when you're looking at dwindling numbers, despite your revenues, it means something. Nobody trusts you. Nobody wants to do it. When I got into journalism, my mom was so proud of me. If my mom were alive today, she'd probably tell people I'm a bill collector for Hell's Angels before she'd tell them I'm a reporter.
Yeah. It's sad. Yeah.
Well, we have a reputation, and we saw it when Trump got elected. I remember it was at the SHOT Show, and we heard he got elected, and we were all, jumping, and everyone was happier. And the comment came up again that we're the only industry I know who basically votes ourselves out of business. In other words, when a Republican comes in, we all know it goes flat. Cue the crickets in this industry. Yep. Suddenly ammo builds up and guns build up and, companies close. The only issue is, though, as we said earlier, is this last cycle here. What I hear from a lot of people is that they're a little worried about the rioters. They're a little worried about the Democrats taking their guns, but they're more concerned or as concerned about the future of government and what's going to happen with government and taking rights away and things like that. So I have a feeling, regardless of who gets into the office the next go around, I think it's going to be okay for our industry. What do you think, Jim? I think Republican or Democrat.
I couldn't agree more. I think uncertainty is always good for us. And the uncertainty is certainly not going to go away because of an election. It's going to inject crazy of one flavor or the other. It's still ice cream. It says, is it strawberry or chocolate? You don't know which flavor you're going to get at this point. And the uncertainty that I see is exactly what you voiced, is people have no faith in the government. And that's what worries me more than a Democrat or a Republican. Who do you believe? You can't believe anybody.
Right.
Yep.
And if somebody says, I'm going to Washington and I'm not a Washington insider, well, you will be inside 90 days. I'm sorry, you got to play by the rules or you don't get in the club. And it's tough. I'm one of those people for almost 50 years of doing this. I have always advocated for term limits. I have advocated for cutting the benefits, making them have to live by every rule they pass. And I love the old Reagan contract. For every rule you passed, you had to repeal 3 others, where you had to simplify things as you were going on. I'm a flat tax guy. Tell me how many percent I need to send you. Let me do it on a postcard, and let's get it done. And it would still be more money than they could ever. Well, no, there's no such thing as more money than they can ever spend. They got a mint. They got plenty of time to make money. But I think that's the things we need. The thing that concerns me the most right now, guys, and I'll throw this out for you, is I think there's a real chance of serious societal violence in the next 12 to 18 months.
Oh, yeah.
And it's only because of the frustration that's built on both sides. I read something not long ago that the left-wing agitators look at violence as a rheostat. They think they can turn it up to get what they want, and then they'll turn it back down. The problem is our side of the equation sees violence as an on and off switch. We're off. If you turn it on, it's going to be horrible. If you take people to the streets armed and capable against crazies who think that they could just throw up their hand and say, no more. It's not going to turn out well for anybody. And that concerns me more than anything else, because I love our industry. I love the people that are in it. I love the people that support it. But there are some people that have a little bit extreme views. You talk about, big meetings. We all know people who are dear friends who will absolutely refuse to wear a face mask. It is not going to happen. They're not going to play by the rules. They don't believe in it. They're not. Well, that's the last thing we need, is them assembling together somewhere. And those things concern me. And that's an old man's concern. They're not really valid. It's just we're sitting around and got too much time playing what if. But I think everything's going well from a business standpoint. I'm happy as a clam. And I know you guys are doing well too. And that's good. We're supposed to do well. We're supposed to keep an eye on what's going on, and we're supposed to help when we can. And that's what I do. The good part of doing what we do is I don't have to play the ball. I play the ball down the middle because I don't want to play favorites, but we're all ultimately on the same side. It's the ice cream argument. We all like ice cream. Some of us just like different flavors.
Mm-hmm. I've heard something lately from some military friends I have. These are younger guys, in their early 30s, 2-3 tours of combat duty. But they're out now and they have good jobs. There are a lot of them work construction, a lot of them work, kind of blue collar jobs, and take care of their families, drive a new pickup truck, that kind of stuff. But they've all got their chest pack and their favorite AR-15. And apparently amongst themselves, there's kind of a gentleman's agreement that, as one of them told me the other day, if this nonsense that's happening in the cities gets a little bit out of hand, we may just decide to step in and stop it. And I think those are different from the extremists that we were talking about a minute ago. I mean, actually, I would buy their ammo if we had ever came to that. These guys. I mean, because they don't want to change. They don't want to take over the government. They don't want to, do violence for no reason. But they just said, I'm really tired of this. I don't want my family to be endangered. And if there reaches a time, and apparently these guys are pretty well connected, like the text message goes out and suddenly 300 of these guys show up, with their F-150s. And I thought, well, maybe that's not a bad thing if it eventually comes.
It's not a bad thing. It's this country was founded on that.
Well, that old tree of liberty has to be watered every once in a while, So
the blood of despots, yes, I believe that.
Yeah. And who would have ever thought we'd have an autonomous zone in 2020
in a big
city?
Yeah, and any other group could have never gotten away with it.
Yeah, there is an autonomous zone. It's called the Great West.
Yeah,
everybody minds their own business. Yeah. Everybody does their own thing, but everyone realizes your rights end at the end of your arm.
Yeah,
and when you get inside the space of my arm, that's not a good thing.
Well, I think that's everybody more than 60 miles away from the coast or not living in a million-plus city. I mean,
have you noticed none of these shenanigans have been happening in the rural area? I mean, I live in the Joplin area, and I know there was going to be they were going to van in the agitators, and so the word got out, and an assembly of people showed up downtown, stood around with their AR-15s. The vans drove through town, and they left.
Kept right on going, huh?
Yeah, they literally did.
Yeah,
I personally know 4 cities where that's happened, and you see zero coverage. And if you do see coverage,
fit the narrative. Come on, Brent, doesn't fit the narrative.
Alt-right agitators leering over their guns and all that. It's good Americans saying that, go ahead and protest, but we have laws and we believe in law and order, and we're going to make sure you stick to that. Even if the police have been told to stand down, we're going to do what we should do as good Americans. So I do have hope in that direction.
Well, I live outside Nashville, and Nashville's had its share of shenanigans the last few months. It's been a really interesting year here between tornadoes and viruses and demonstrations and just general crazy. And they came here because it's a college town. College towns are liberal compared to most non-college towns. And they went down by the university and they were marching and they were doing all of this and they were making their noises. And it's only mile and a half from my house. They got about a mile from my house, and the campus police just decided, that's enough. And they said, you need to disperse. And they're like, nobody's going to tell us what to do. And they're like, pop. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me, officer. We were just leaving. Now, I could see the tear gas going up, but I couldn't smell it. Now, when I smell it, that's too close. Seeing it in the distance is kind of a vicarious thing. That doesn't, it's like a house fire or a forest fire. I can see it out in the distance, but it's not here at my house. And my neighborhood, but have been a really bad idea to come into my neighborhood, because I've got retired Marines and retired Special Forces guy down the street, and then just a crazy at the end of the cul-de-sac that none of us mess with. So you just don't want to go there. But I mean, they don't understand that. And the problem is the people who have never experienced rights and obligations and cause and effect have a problem. I saw a great image the other day. It was one of the dark, evil federal officers had this woman by the scruff of the neck, and he was hauling her off, and she's looking over her shoulder in this look of abject panic. And the caption says, a woman being told for the first time in her life that actions have consequences.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was about 3, I think, when that first happened to me. So
yeah.
Well, and to clarify,
I don't think I even remember. I just remember going tail over tea kettle for something I did.
And to clarify, that's not sexist. It's a person, take woman out of it, a person who's never been told no in their life. They live in mom and dad's basement. They studied at a liberal university, and their voice deserves to be heard until they're told to stop, and they don't get that. And it's wonderful.
The word that's causing all of the problem is only a 2-letter word, starts with an N and ends with an O, and it's no. They're just not ever used to being told no. All of the people who are griping about what happens if Trump refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election are the same ones who still haven't accepted 2016.
Yeah.
Quit whining. People win, people lose, you come, you go. It's all of that other stuff. It's a cycle. Ride with the cycle. Don't try to change the cycle. If you like a top, let it spin. The gyros are not out of balance.
Well, this same group of young guys I was talking about, that topic of Trump and refusing to leave office came up. And they said essentially that, that would be a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Because these guys would not tolerate that. Period. Yeah. I don't think Secret Service would. I mean, if his Secret Service guys went in there and Trump said, I'm not leaving my office, they'd look at each other and go,
you get his leg. This is not your office anymore.
Yeah. I think. Exactly. Well, look, since we haven't talked about anything incendiary or to get anybody's eyes up, how does the NRA fit into this? A topic near to you, Jim.
Yeah, gotta go.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Restaurant Association.
My socks.
Yeah. That's right.
The NRA, unfortunately, doesn't figure into anything. It doesn't figure into anything anymore. Only we're just trying to decide when to put the date at the end of it starts here and it ends here. When is that date going to happen? Because the NRA, because of its own ineffectiveness, I'll come out and say it, is nothing. It doesn't figure into anything. I'm sorry. It's going to make some people angry. It's going to fire people up. But if you're fired up because I say the NRA has gotten so screwed up it doesn't know what's going on, maybe you need to do a little investigation and stop taking everything they tell you as gospel truth. When you've got a group that had $1 billion in the bank and all of a sudden they're telling you they're too broke to make payroll and they're laying people off, you have to ask a question. Where did the money go? Where are my programs? Why are my shooting programs getting cut back? Why are they not doing anything? Why are they pulling off of this? Why are they pulling off that? I have some dear friends that don't need to be in their jobs anymore. And I have some dear friends who don't have jobs anymore who should have those jobs. And, all I can say about this is you get as mad as you want to get about me saying this. I've never taken a position on the NRA because that's not my job. But I can tell you, if we reported what was going on there, people would really be PO'd at all of us because it's a mess. It's a managerial mess. It's a nightmare. It's ineffective. Here we are in one of the most important election cycles, which I've said for every election cycle ever. One of the most important election cycles we've ever been in. And our biggest advocate is on the sidelines because they're too busy fighting each other.
But what should Sam and Susie Homemaker do? In other words, what should the guy who has a yearly membership or paid up and got his life membership, and because they're frustrated, we hear from them, what should I do? Who should I support? I'm afraid to not support them. Should I join a local organization? What advice can you give them, Jim? You've been in the industry a long time and you've got insider information,
Me? No, believe me, nobody there talks to me anymore. And I'm happy with that. Because I don't want to be in the middle of what is basically a house fire. It's a dumpster fire up there. There's no way to go around it. But I don't know what to do to fix it. How does an organization that purports to represent 5 million people get to the point that 4 or 5 people tell 5 million people what to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a joiner, so it's hard for me to fix something like that. I'd just hang somebody from a lamppost.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think an important part here is, and I think I got it from you, Jim. We were talking about this, and you've got more insider deep info. And I was saying, well, I understand this and that, and you said there's no good guy here. There's no good guy. And
no.
The more I've learned, that's absolutely correct.
Look, you've got a board that is bigger than the population of the town I grew up in. If you've got a board of more than 10 people, you're not qualified to navigate across town. You'll never get there. The board is busy going, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. I don't know. It's not me. It's not. Well, who is it? Who the hell is it if it's not you? That's what it all shakes down to. And the problem with a board is a lot of people want to be on a board because they think it makes them cool. I'm the cool kids. Well, cool kids don't have fiduciary responsibility. They don't have abrogation. They don't face the Feasance triplets, mal, miss, and non. Yeah. They don't have a fiduciary responsibility to supervise what's going on. The problem is it's built upside down. The management is telling the board what they're going to do. It's supposed to be the board telling the management what to do and then checking to make sure they do it. Yep. It's not happening. If your board doesn't govern, you got trouble.
So conspiracy theory, is the board too big on purpose?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. They'd double the size of the board if they could.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Because that makes it look like an honorary position. People want to have it. And then they realize, oh my God, I didn't have any idea that we
just
spent
until they have to hire lawyers, right? Their own.
Oh my, this is getting better by the minute. The next thing you know, we'll have to have a PR company. We pay $500 million over 20 years.
I asked somebody a couple of years ago who I respected, who had been on the board. And I said, I feel like I should get involved and see if I can help make changes. And I was thinking of running for the board. And it was funny. He looked at me and he went, trust me, you don't want to have anything to do with it. He said, you'll never get clean afterward. That was his quote to me.
Yeah.
It was someone who we all know, Yeah. And I just thought,
it's like the taste of blood in your mouth. You never forget it once you had it. Mm-hmm. And these people are, they're staring down the barrel of a cannon. And that cannon is in the state of New York. And the only reason that the New York Attorney General hasn't come down on the NRA like a box of rocks is she doesn't have to. They have neutered themselves. Now, when it's all over and the election cycle passes, we can expect that discourse to ramp up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because, she has the legal obligation, not the political opportunity. She has a legal obligation to make sure that that board is running effectively. She has to make sure that that organization is solvent. She has to make sure that that board is adhering with the law. If they're not, her responsibilities include 1, suspending the board, 2, suspending the management, and 3, suspending the entity entirely, taking it over until such time it can all be corrected. How long do you think it's going to take the state of New York to fix the NRA? They can't fill a pothole in Albany. Yeah. They don't want to fix the NRA, but they don't have to do anymore.
I do want to say, though, that not everyone on this board is, shall I say, guilty. I think we all know there are people on the board who honestly do try to do a good job, but they seem to be handcuffed. I mean, I could name.
I will tell you the same thing that Letitia James will tell them. Ignorance of the law does not free you from the fetters that come with it. Yeah. Because you didn't know what your obligations were and still took the position. There are people on the board who don't dare get off because they're afraid once they get off, they're going to get deposed. And if they get deposed, they're afraid they're going to get indicted. And you're better to stay there and just keep saying, I don't know anything, than to run off the cliff to prove that there are rocks at the bottom. Everybody knows it's not going to end well. We all have dear friends who are board members. And there's a standing rule we don't talk about it because I don't want to know. There are people who call once a week, not every day. People call regularly saying, hey, did you hear? And I'm like, nope, I did not. I didn't hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it.
Jim always has an educated opinion spiced up by his sharp wit, and I hope you found something valuable among all the serious but not so serious talk. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Please tell all your friends, even those crazy liberals. Guns Magazine is #1 in the business, and we're using our decades of friendships to bring you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions, comments, or a guest you'd like to recommend for the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you don't miss out on anything by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast directory and YouTube. Of course, you can always listen and download our episodes at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out our sister publication, American Handgunner magazine, at americanhandgunner.com. Even better, it's not a bad idea to support firearms journalism by subscribing to one or both of our print magazines. And finally, I'd like to remind you to check out our sponsor and friend, Kimber Firearms, at kimberamerica.com. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast for the entire staff at FMG Publications. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.